Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this live stream event. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items. Our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and our presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but we're just ask that you're mindful of your commentary remaining professional and on topic. Our event guidelines. So this session is being streamed live to YouTube. It will be available afterwards for on-demand access. If you're not familiar with YouTube and how it interacts for live streams, you do need to have an account to interact in the chat. So now is the perfect opportunity for you to set that up if you haven't done so. Questions will be answered for this session more towards the end, but feel free to drop them in throughout. So today's session, the Reactor is pleased to be joined by Wayne Wang, a senior Azure app consulting engineer. They'll be discussing Azure AD for mixed reality apps. So let me bring Wayne up on the screen here. Hello, Wayne. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being a part of this.
Hello. This is Wayne from Microsoft China side. I'm very glad to have use this opportunity to get what we got from the field and trying to feedback to the community. And thank you for the hosting teams.
Of course.
Thank you.
I'll let you take it from here.
Yep.
I'll bring your screen up. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Wayne from Azure App Consulting team. So short form is AAC. Today's topic was Azure AD for mixed reality apps. This is something we were helping people on field trying to enable their applications to access their resources on Azure. So we found that our customers may have ability, well skills on developing Unity and mixed reality apps, but they are new to Azure. So we found that opportunity, and we gave this solutions for all the blockers they met on that step. So if you want to go through all the examples and the codes, you can go to this link, and also it will be provided in the chat channel. But if you are not ready for copy and paste, please take a picture or scan the QR code. It will lead you to the repo about of the code about this session. Okay. Now it's about the agenda of this session. So first of all, we are going to sync with our concepts and prescription quiz. And also after that, we'll see the major 3 steps, like logging yourself into the AAD using the mixed reality application and make a graph API call. And the second step is you can use your own API instead of Graph API. That means you are developing more. And the third one is you want to log in with AD and trying to call Azure Pass Service. That's some API that Azure provide and Microsoft provide for you. So with these steps, you will know almost everything. You want to have Azure resources or services cooperate with your mixed reality apps. After all these, we will find some patterns and practice. We will do some summaries about methodology of everything. Make your life of development in MR easier. So let's see the basic concepts. So Azure AD, everything was about managed by Azure AD, Azure Active Directory on Azure. All the services, all the security roles, all the users, they are acting as a member, a user, a service principal, an item in Azure Active Directory. And for other resources in AAD, they are like almost everything was controlled by RESTful APIs. It's totally HTTP and web interfaces. So AD supports like the industry standard so far, like the OAuth 2.0 as the basic behaviors. So any class library actually support OAuth 2.0 could be the uh, class library we called with AAD calls, and all the flows are compatible with the AAD. But currently, we are not using any other library because we need a much more official support from Microsoft. We may need like MACL, like Microsoft Identity Access Platform Library. So application types actually that will like decide what kind of flow trace of OAuth 2.0 you're using. So we can see like there are different type in AD authentication services, like SPA single page applications, maybe JavaScript or maybe Blazor and other things. Also, web apps is classic. We have pages, but we have like active server like handlers to provide to render that page. And also we can have like web APIs for just the data and some remote calls offered on web. And mobile and native applications like the desktop or maybe app on your mobile device. So all these things, we only focus on these two, like web APIs. That's some API we are trying to consume, and this is MR development related. The most important part is this is consumer, like this is application you wrote and you want to consume services. So this is something we focus on. So depends on we are already like choose these two. We can have limited authentication flow to choose. Usually we start with authentication code flow. This is an example of native apps or mobile apps uh, authentication flow. It's called like authentication code flow. So basically, it's kind of a pop-up, get a token, and call service return. These basic steps. But there are a lot of words here. Let's make it simple later. Uh, so if you want to develop this with mixed reality and also with Azure, at least you should have a MSAD or MSA account, maybe Hotmail or maybe like Outlook. Uh, you can also apply a new one, and you can get a trial version of Azure subscription. With that, you can start your develop and do all the demos today. And with develop tools, we should need IDE Visual Studio 2019, or maybe you are familiar with VS Code. It's okay. But just make sure it works with Unity together. We have Unity and mixed reality feature tool that was related to Unity development on the mixed reality. We need install MRTK using this tool. And for hardware, just any workstation capable for Unity development, that will be okay. If you are new to Azure, please take some like look on these pictures. We can just go to azure.microsoft.com, and if you see this screen, you can start Azure for free and start free with these buttons. It can lead you to the like a trial version implement. with some of your basic information, and you will be okay to have like into the portal and with your free account or free subscription. You can, if you zoom in enough, you can see this is a free trial subscription. It will like make all this demo run without any like a payment billing. Okay, so that's the requirement of this demo and of this session. Let's go to the first step, like logging yourself onto Azure AD. This is very first step. Uh, First step of the first step. Okay, like start with application registration creation. So what is application registration? It's kind of the uh, item created on Azure that will represent your application itself. But it was not your application because you are not uploading any code and any details about that. But it will be your application's ID. So Azure can assign your application with their rights permissions and manage that your application with this registration like just data, but that it was like a start of everything. If you want to like make it a little more specific, it's kind of image or a digital twin of your application. Let's use that word. Okay. So when we create that registration for your client, we like you can see that we are going to create a client application registration, and others including like a web service native. But we are trying to using our mobile app, so that is totally not a service or web. So we should choose that. Uh, and we have already mentioned that like a native app or a mobile app, it was all the logic was on local, and nothing was on Azure. So it when it's logged in, it should pop out a window on your client, and you can see this is something we open a window, start our like authentication, and also asking scope key or will be a scope token uh, to some resources. If that is applied, like already approved, you can get the token code back, and also after that you can like send your request to the exact resource you are visiting. When the resource like validated you can get the result of that. So this is complex one. Let's see if we can put it a little easier. So first step, we should set up as a background. Make sure your resource was like approved for like your registration have approved for access for the Azure resource. This is the first step. All set up, then the client sign in and get the token out from the registration. After that, you can use the token to the resource directly. So this is very easy steps, and we have exact code or the library we have. But first, we should do the first step of the registration creating. So when you go to the Azure portal, you can find any resource you can create and all the resources you already have. When you create like Azure subscription, Azure Active Directory was already there. This is your major Azure uh, Active Directory. You can create more, but usually when we are using administration rights, you are the native user of this subscription, and you are a native user, one of the administrative user of the default Azure Active Directory. So we don't need to create another one. So let's search Azure Active Directory, And with Azure Active Directory, there is a column here called app registrations. You can see the words here. The image cutting was wrong, was cutting too much, but you can see the item was app registrations. And you can see another button here is add registration. Here is where we put the new digital twin of your application. Okay. After that, we should choose like what kind of account can using your Active Directory login of your application. So you can choose that's in your organization only, or you can add like a Microsoft accounts with other MSID like Skype, Xbox, or you can let everyone like only have personal account to log in. It's your choice. For this example, we choose almost everyone here. And after that, we can see the details of the created things. All these data are useful for our future login in the client. So the client can use the library and all these informations to make sure which AD you are logging in and who is your like target resources. This is the key information. So make sure you have a screenshot or maybe you have the address of this page. We will use it later. Okay. Oh, is it still on the, am I zooming myself?
Hello. It looks like you stopped sharing your screen.
Okay, let me try.
I want to
Okay.
reshare.
Share screen. Okay.
All right, we're back.
Nice. So let's continue. Okay. For the native applications, we need to set our redirect URL as this const because this is not a web application. There is no receiver on the internet that can get the authentication result there. So this URL can actually give the client side a signal that you can close the pop-out window now. So that is not really important. Or maybe if you are familiar with Windows Store application, you can have another different URL to tell your application directly, but that's not the story here. If you want to make it simple, you just use this const. And after that, all set up, all the background was set up. You just need to copy some key information from that now. So now we are trying to create your first application on your HoloLens or maybe another device, MR headset or something. It is with mixed reality, so it should be a UWP client. So our methodology was first we create a simple and out codes. But why should we do that? Because like UWP XML is easy to change and compile. Maybe you can deploy it once every 2 minutes. But if you're trying to do that with Unity 3D, you want to test it on HoloLens or other devices, it kind of need almost 20 minutes to do that for a round. That was like too costly for your productivity. So that's the methodology. Like we can test almost everything here, make the variables much more stable and test it on the real stuff. Also, like we need the Visual Studio here. We mentioned that again, and we trying to do the whole things, and we trying to create a new one, fit your current like HoloLens version. You can choose your versions. And also for the new project, you need to install these new get packages. For the first demonstration, we trying to use MSAL or aka the Microsoft Identity Client package. And also we are trying to call a very simple API. That API was default enabled for every user on Azure Active Directory. That was like a Graph API user me. That is like a get yourself what who I am, that kind of API. So that cannot be forbidden, like blocked. So that's something like fit every environment that we can know like we are using some authentication to get information from the AD. Okay, so let's install this tool, and then we can create a UI and make two text box and one of the Graph API button to do that. So let's go to the code. Here is the code we are using. Let's see. Also, it's already provided in the repo of the code on GitHub. We shared it at the beginning of the meeting. Okay, you can see it's a little bit different that we have another button. There's some more topic, deeper topic we will talk later, but let's focus this. This button will call a method, which is a call graph button click. And with this button, the logic, oh, that's better way. Logic was we create a client and trying to using this method to create it with scopes. Scopes means what we are trying to do, what permission we want to get here. The scope was defined here, user read, or if we make it empty, it will be user read still, like we are trying to read ourselves as a user. With this default scope, we go through this. Yeah. Here is the exact login function here. You can see in this body, we are trying to create a public client application builder. We're trying to create a public client app. This is some like root objects of the API of MSAL. No matter what kind of authentication flow you're using, you should create an application, client application, and you try to call it to server to get your token here. The client ID was defined in the application registration we mentioned. We copy it here. You can see the client ID is a tenant, which AD it is, and authority tenant, these are some cons that we copied from the overall page of the registration. And after that, here, we make setups for this object with a login, with a callback URL when it succeed, and build. Without these settings, just create a new instance of this. And then we should ask the server, like if I can start our process of authentication. You can see that we have a try catch here. The try catch here was like acquire token silent and acquire token interactive. Sorry for the pop-up. Oh. I'm going back. Okay, these two are the major method we are using. So for acquire token interactive means I have to create a window, pop-up window for logins. And for the acquire token silent means trying to use something stored already in the hard disk or maybe in the cookie to log in. So the process was trying to log in with the cookies first. Because this is SSO or something like we can reuse last time login result. It is failed, and you can see silent field. We need a UI here. When this exception pop up, means we should do it interactively. So here is interactive, the scopes trying to do that. So let's run it. I forgot that if I successfully logged in last time. Let's see. Let's see it is silently or not. You can see it's a button here, like a call Microsoft Graph API MSAL. When we click, it'll try to do one of the major. Okay, it seems like I have already logged in the cache. So I do the sign out. It will delete everything in the cache, and we can start that process again. This is the acquire token interactive, and now I can input my email account. Yeah, this is public, so it's okay. And after that, next, it will jump to my multi-factor authentication. So now I'm using my phone to start this. Authenticator, Face ID, inputting 45, Face ID again. Now my Microsoft account was logged into that. Totally fine. You can see that information with API me is here. And you can see that this is some new domain I created with my MSID. And here is my Microsoft account from other organization, which was a guest for this. You can see the information we have. Also, we can sign out. Okay. So this is the most basic and the most detailed process of everything. We will not go this detailed in later because they are similar. You can go through the code I provide, and you can find that all the structure looks the same, and you can tell the differences for each kind of logins. So let's go through this. Yeah, let's go back to like those two methods again. Get user token interactively means you have to pop up something let user interactive, and the other was like silently. If it was successfully logged in before, you can use the cache or the cookies or whatever it is. You can do that again. That was managed by MSAL. But if you want to do that yourself, you have to make your own storage of anything. So that's something like MSAL made for productivity. You can leverage that. Yeah, go through the code again. Try it silently and interactively if it fails. And also, after that, you have already get the token, and you can use the authentication header, or maybe you can add it to the HTTP header directly after that, because the function returns a token string, and it will be in the barrier header of next call to the API or the resource you're asking. Then this is the result. When you are going to do the sign out, you still need to use the public client app object you created before, and you can just remove it about the first account you created. if you have multiple accounts involved with the application, you can also enumerate all the accounts and find out which one is the one you want to log off. But usually, people are not trying to do multiple domain resources in single app. So you can, but you don't really need to do that. So this is the easiest way, like get the first and delete it on that. And that's the sign out button for we have already demonstrated. And for the logs and other stuff, that's more steps you can do. For HoloLens and other Windows Hello devices, you can leverage those like fingerprints with your Face ID recognitions, or maybe your iris in HoloLens. You can do that, but that was limited because it should be very secure. It should be signed packages and also enable all these like enterprise authentication, private network, and share user certificates, these capabilities, which may also should be approved by the Windows Store to enable that. But if you met the requirement, you can log in yourself into your apps very fast without typing anything. It's restricted, but productivity is good. Uh, but yeah, when we have limitations, we cannot do all the certificate or packaging. We still have chances to do something like similar to that, make it better. We will mention that with device code flow or something. Okay, this is very detailed part. And if you understand that, the other things will be much more easier for you. Uh, so we are trying to move those things from Unity, from UWP to Unity. The same thing we should do is create UI almost like that. So we are using MRTK for mixed reality development at everybody else using Unity do. We can create two of the buttons and two text field, aka labels, to get the token details and the graph API details here. When we create the call graph API, the whole thing will do the same, and the result will go here. And the code we put it in the PowerPoint and also in the code repo. It's almost the same as UWP one, but it was weird with Unity. So all the the results return, so we put it into fields of the behaviors. So that's something Unity usually like. So we're doing that. And for the uh, classes, or so for the reference of the DLLs, we have to pick it manually from the packages, NuGet packages, because when you are using the NuGet for Unity, or maybe using other stuff trying to get DLLs, usually it was about Windows platform, and it was not a plugin platform, plugin configuration aware. So you have to do that yourself. So we can put the Microsoft Identity Client packages DLLs into two different folder. For the folders, for the DLLs in folder net standard things, those are something for the editors, which can help us uh, past the build stage of the Unity development environment, and we put it into the plugins placeholder, and we make it like on an editor version running, like a platform editor platform, and we put the UAP folders DLLs into plugins, which is actually using in the UWP environment. We should click this checkbox on here, and we should mark it as a WC player. But that was not enough. For Unity L2 CBP facilities, they are trying to decrease the size of the code when it was not directly called. So the identity client library, which was provided for UWP platform, will be decompiled and compiled into C++. But some of the functions or some of the class was not called directly. It was using reflection or other stuff called. So Unity compiler and the linker cannot see it happens. It will be removed. That's most of the case that people hate a blocker, compile break something. So we should make sure these three libraries was preserved as all, like it was not reduced of anything. Everything here should be compiled to C++ and will be compiled to universal application later. And here is the code. We still need those scope screen about the client ID, tenant. These are put into fields, and we can do it in the editor. We can put everything here. And we can link the sign in and sign out events here. And here is the result. Hope you can see it. Okay. This is shot from my HoloLens, and I'm working in China, so sorry about the Chinese characters. You can see that was inputting my credentials like what I did in my PC. And you can see like a holographic keyboard was a painful experience. So maybe if you are using Irish or maybe device code flow we mentioned later, it will be better. Okay, it's almost done. This is me. I'm trying to use my authenticator, my phone to do that. It's shaking because my head is shaking. I'm looking into my phones. It's almost there. Okay, the phone input is done. And we should go to next. You can see the same result, but this is in JSON. It's finished. So if you want to start your Irish, still like these three things should be enabled, and you should package it and assign the publish into like a store or something. But in Unity, we should do it with the player settings, the capabilities here, which is not the same place as UWP client directly, and it will be overwritten if you do something modification in the compile result of the Unity project. So please do it here. So this is the demo of like you call the basic calling on graph, but for graph API, this is very powerful, and you can almost do everything with your AD, like access your SharePoint, your email, your meetings, almost everything. And so if you want trying to do that, first, if you have these resources, all the graphic API calls are free, and make sure your IT department give you the permission to access that, and that will enable all the possibilities accessing like Office 365 and Microsoft 365, and for some like newly created graph API, it was not in the SDK, but you can still find out the documentation of the RESTful API. You can use that HTTP. You just need to put the token into the barrier header of your request. It will do it fast, but choose it wisely, like your productivity or your like alignment with new technology. That's your choice. And SDKDL will be mentioned later. Let's go through other parts fast. It's already costing a lot of time. So for Azure functions, almost the same, but we need two steps of trust. So first one is we create our application registration, but we need another digital twin or ghost of your service app registration. So for a service app, we create an API or we create a website. It was there, but it still need a ghost in the AD authentication. So that is something they can manipulate and trust or maybe allow access with it. So we have a resource we may have like a storage account or like a SQL server or something. It will need like allow access with like your service app, maybe your APIs. The API can like access that resource. And second step, like let your client application, which is nothing was on Azure, it can be recognized and approved by service app registration. Let service app give service to the offer services to the client app. So this is a two-step of trust. But when the client app gets the token of this two-step trust, they can use the token directly to the service app, and the service app will do the later things. So it's almost the same. And the difference was like where we put the token to access or what kind of request we are trying to use. So let's pass this creating your function app or your API, because you may already familiar with how to create an API here. But you may need to know like we should create application registration for your function API. Let's say you have already have that. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is how to create your like resources. You can create it directly on the Azure portal, and also you can create your codes here. When you create a new Azure functions, you can directly do it from your Visual Studio, and it will publish directly to the resource on your Azure. And for the function app, you can make it very simple, just return some screens. Here we are using the current login user details, like the claim type things, and we trying to print it here. And then we can create the ghost of your API, or maybe the digital twins of your API. Also in the registration of Azure AD. And also here is different. We are creating a different type. We are not creating a native, we are creating an API or services, and we have like a different URL to return, as it was the address of your function app. You can find the documentation here, or the patterns here. And also we allow them expose API to create another scope. Like if the client have the scope of this newly created scope, it can call this. You can follow the step to do all of this. And later we are trying to do this call API button. It was still like with the same process. We are using the sign user get token in MCL, and we have the scope custom, which was created in the function extraction here, API, blah, blah, with like a user impersonation. So with this scope, our function app can use the credential of a user who logged in, pass this credential to the service or to the like resources they are visiting. So this is like trying to impersonate the user doing the same action as user. And typically it will run like this. And we are trying to move all this code into the Unity, and it will look like this. Let me make it smaller and make it faster. Okay, you can see the long list we provide. So everything was in the PowerPoint and also in the code. So don't be harsh. Like you can take your time offline later. So for all the PaaS resources, services on Azure, it's kind of like Microsoft already made it for you. It's kind of same thing as your API, but you can try to do that. And for the API provided, all the resources provided on Microsoft on Azure for the PaaS, something you should do is like do the CORS settings. Make sure like that resource can be visited by other side, including another client that was related. That was like a unblocking people using your client to visit Azure resources from different domains. And when we trying to like let people to access some files in the storage account, we should assign like the user who is logging as the data owner or maybe reader or writer. Here we are using owner that we want to demonstrate the create file and the download file both. And also we need to let the application registration of the client have new permissions to the new permission also means new scope to the service we are trying to let it visit. This is Azure storage, and we should create the permission of Azure storage of user impersonation, still like using the user credentials to do the visit, accessing the data. And for the DLLs we are using, it was also on NuGet, Azure Storage blobs. Uh, and for Unity, for the UWP, it was smooth. Like we just reference it and it will work. Like with the token string, with same step, we get the token string with a new scope. We can consume it, and we can try to do this kind of thing. Like here we get the token, and we can new string token credential. Using the string token credential, we can create a blob service client. With this service client, we can create containers, upload and download here. This codes as like how to consume the token we get from AED. For the Unity app, we need to pick those DLLs which is important, and put the same placeholder and plug in different platform folders, and we do the same. And also we can have these videos to record like it's uploading a file and downloading a file, but which is costing time. Let's pass this. So for all this practice, we can find some patterns, and we have the experiences about these, like DL picking. For the DL picking, we have some process which can maximum the productivity. So these steps are first prepare your edited DLLs, which can use as a placeholder to help Unity to compile, to build to the UWP project. The second step was prepare UWP DLLs, which was according the list of editor DLLs. We get the UWP versions and put it into another folder, just for the UWP project. The third one, we just test it when everything is done and make sure it works. If it's not, we try to fix things. So for preparation for editor DLLs, we have a trick like this. Like we create a console app with .NET 3.5 or 4.5, and we add all the NuGet packages in that applications. After the build or compile, we can get all the DLL files and put it into placeholder path and mark it as the player DLLs. Usually that will work, but if there are more DLL missing, you can find out the packages references. You can do that again. But if you're trying to find some conflation DLLs, they have a different version with system, you just remove some DLLs into that, but it will cost you only 5 minutes, not really a long time. For the UWP DLLs, you have already get the player DLLs. You can find nearby nearby folders. First, you go to the NuGet folders, and you can find your AP 10 point blah blah this kind of version folders. With those folders, that's the first choice you need to do. But if you do not have a UAP version, that means the class library will not call in any native API for UAP. You can choose the .NET Standard 2.0 or bigger version, but usually 2.0 because UWP may be only compatible with the 2.0 version. And after that, you can test it with the newly built in UWP and still fix missing DLLs and remove the conflicted DLLs. If there are missing ones, you can do more packages and do this over. And don't forget to use the link. So link XML to make sure everything was compiled to CPP. The second part is kind of consideration of everything. So when we are using the authentication code flow, it's typical, it's easy to understand, but it's not as useful, as easy as possible, because multiple things first of all, the device may be a shared device or maybe a personal device which was not capable with Windows Hello. So we have to type everything, even with your password, in the holographic operating system. That may cause some problem. We'll mention it later. The second thing is this is shared device. It was all those devices, A devices, were joined in AAD, but that was shared with 20 people. That means randomly, some people were not, information was not in some headset already. So every time you should log in again with the starting of everything, that may be a problem on that. It's a less productivity. And also, maybe you are hosting an event with AAD, you create an application can run on any AAD. So you want to invite other people to use your device to do some test, but your device will not join in those AAD, and nobody has the credential already in your HoloLens. That will cause minutes or maybe hours to make it work. That was a disaster if you just trying to use authentication flow, the code flow. And also, when we talk about the holographic keyboards, for some security sensitive customers, they actually can have cameras on you and trying to guess what you tapped with this normal sized keyboard here. So you'd better use your Baltic, maybe Irish or something to log in, or not in public. And Also, like for HoloLens 2, some people may have like a camera just to see the mirror image in your eyes or something. It was like a bad place to keep your secret. So maybe we should do that little better. And when you using Windows Hello Bell text, it was like not available in some scenario we mentioned, and it was not friendly for like B2B for other organization to join in. So what about to move them to another device like your mobile phone? It's like what we do with the video. Maybe you are using HBO or maybe some version of Netflix. I don't know. And also for Xbox, we have that facility. Like you can log in with a code in a website to make sure your login was redirected to another device, which is have more like a capable uh, the keyboard or something. So here is a flow that it's even easier than the device code flow. It's kind of the client tells the AD like I'm starting a request of authentication and please give me a code. I will give it to my user. So after that, the client just wait for the end of the authentication. Other things was just happen with user with their own devices, mobile devices with the URL, and the user using the code to authenticate and log in and exam gets the token. When all everything was done, the token was directly come back to the client. Actually, these part in the middle, they are in the different device. Only the first step and the last step was from your HoloLens. And you can see the code is much more easier. Just trying to start, get the code, and return. So that's something like we mentioned, like it will be much more easier for the all the scenarios we tell about, like which is not made using Windows Hello and can solve a lot of different things. Okay, so I think that's all we have today to share. And is there any questions here in comments? Let me see.
Hey, Wayne, there was a couple.
Yeah, I'm looking into the comments. Okay, first question I see was, is there a way to limit which tenants the user can come from with multi-tenant applications or I need to implement this in our API? So uh, for Azure B2B, actually, it if the people is not invited or trusted as a guest, uh, no tenants can no other tenant can log in into your application. So for my test, I already put my Wayne Wang in Microsoft account trusted as a guest. I create like a image of that guest in my AED. So if you make it restrict, only allow the user from any from us like a particular organization can be invited into your resources. So please don't be worried about that. It's not open to anyone. Uh, but if you open to like a MSID account, that will be like the same until you are using Azure B2C or something that will like a default for opening for everyone. But you can trust for each credentials you want to put it into a group that will be the scenario. Okay. Uh, so the second question is, in some places I can see common in the URL where a tenant usually is. I presume this is for multi-tenant cases where I don't know the tenants until the user inputs their email. Uh, is that right? Yes, like it's still like it's not the process like it's little different. So when you're using Azure B2B, it was still like you create so the tenant always be your tenant, your like AD, and when the guests or from another business organization come in, uh, it's already stored. So the IT guy just create a guest an invitation for that guest people, send an email to them, and the Azure will make another user mapping to the user in another organization. So the whole thing we are doing here is like using your own tenant and using your own storage of users to do the authentication. But the trust between organizations that was not in your AAD, that was jumping through the login Microsoft.com. That's another story. And like for each step, the AD will know or not know the tenant of the user actually from. But in that case, you are saying like the AD do not know the tenant from until the user uh, email was already inputted. That makes sense. Like AD they have some steps that they do not know where it's from. But the first step was mapping the uh, username with your storage, with your like user information of guests. Then they can get more information and trying to align with another tenant they want to communicate. Okay, this is the second questions. Okay, I think that's everything. I don't know, like if that answered everything, but yeah, please give us more feedback after.
That was great, Wayne. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It looks like you did get to all the questions. If
Yeah.
anybody tuning in has any more, feel free to reach out. You can find us also, the Reactor, on meetup.com. We have multiple locations, so if we didn't get to your question today, you're watching this on demand later, you have a follow up, feel free to find us. I shared in the chat and also on the screen some links to the mixed reality community. Definitely check it out. Sign up to the newsletter, look at their events calendar. There's a lot of content coming out. And then also, if you're not familiar with the Reactor, we also put out a lot of different content. We cover a few different topics, so not always mixed reality. But if you are not familiar with us, definitely check out our calendar as well. You can find us right now on meetup.com if you search for Microsoft Reactor and just find a location closest to you. Wayne, thank you again so much. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. And until the next one, take
Okay,
care,
thank
everyone.
you. Bye bye.